We are live.
Namaskar and very good evening to all. On behalf of Adhivakta Parishad Supreme Court Unit, I am privileged and honored to extend my warm welcome to you all. As we all are aware that this month is being celebrated as a month of Swami Vivekananda Jayanti, so today Adhivakta Parishad Supreme Court Unit is also celebrating Young Advocates Day, and our today's topic is Swami Vivekananda's perspective towards society and the youth. For the opening ceremony, I would like to request and invite Mr. Vishal Mahajanji and Pushpinderji for lighting up the lamp. Thank you so much, Vishal Mahajanji and Pushpinderji. To begin something auspicious with lighting up the lamp has always remained as a part of our ancient culture and tradition. This divine representation of lighting up and lamp symbolize the peace, prosperity, knowledge, reality, and to rise from darkness to light. Now, all the viewers are requested to kindly join with us on our national song Vande Mataram.
Namaskar to everyone. Vande Mataram Sujalam Sufalam Malayaja Shitalam Shashamalam Mataram Vande Mataram Shubhra Josna Pulakita Yamini Pullakusumita Drumadala Sobhini Suhasini Sumadhura Bhashini Sukhadam Varadam Mataram Vande Mataram Koti Koti Kantha Kal Kala Nilad Karale Koti Koti Bhujai Drita Kara Karavale Abla ke nama to bale Bahubal Dharenim Namami Tarenim Ripudal Varenim Mataram Vande Mataram Tumi Vidya Tumi Dharma Tumi Hridhi Tumi Marma Tvam hi prana vasharire bahute Tumi ma shakti hridaye Tumi ma bhakti Tumhare pratima gadi mandire mandire Vande Mataram Kam hi durga dash praharan dharani Kamala kamal dal viharini Vani vidya dayini Namami tvam Namami kamalam Amalam Atulam Sujalam Sufalam Mataram Vande Mataram Shyamlam Saralam Shushmitam Bhushitam Dharani Dharani Mataram Vande Mataram Vande Mataram Vande Mataram.
Thank you, Shravan Shuklaji. For the viewers who are joining us for the first time, I welcome them all and would like to take an opportunity to introduce them with Akhil Bharatiya Adhivakta Parishad. Adhivakta Parishad is the biggest organization of lawyers, not only in India but in the world. Since its foundation in the year 1992, Parishad is working towards the objective of reviving Bharatiya values and idealism in the hearts of advocates. Adhivakta Parishad is working in a direction to improve the knowledge of our colleagues, and for that, the units of Adhivakta Parishad are organizing study circles time to time. Adhivakta Parishad has also a goal to make our justice delivery system accessible for all sections of the society, and for that, Adhivakta Parishad has established Nyaya Kendra at different places. The 15th National Conference of Adhivakta Parishad was held in December 2018 for 3 days in Lucknow, wherein more than 7,000 lawyers participated. Now, Adhivakta Parishad has its units not only in all states of the country but also in the maximum district court of the country. Since time is limited in this session, therefore, without taking much of your time, I would like to invite Mr. Ayush Anandji for introduction of topic. Over to you, Ayushji.
Thank you, Amitji, and thanks for inviting me for the introduction of this important topic today. Before such a distinguished speaker and learned audience joined to this live streaming of Adhivakta Parishad Supreme Court Unit. As we all know, Swami Vivekananda was one of the most prominent spiritual leader and philosopher of recent times in India. He was born in Kolkata on 12th of January 1863. Contribution of Swamiji in reinvigorating Indian national spirit at the time when our society was going through a very tough phase is very well known to all of us. We were struggling to attain our political freedom. At the time when Vivekananda had started his movement through his speeches and writing and also through his social work in a missionary zeal to ignite the soul of Bharat, there was no end in foresight for the British imperial rule in Bharat. Our culture and spirituality were also under severe threat because of the influence of our Western rulers and their preachers. The practices and values of the ruler class was high on pedestal in the mindset of Indian elites and common people. Hence, in comparison, our ancient tradition and values were in deep shock, and there was a sense of disarray for the future of our faith and civilizational prowess. In short, Indians were on a daily basis facing a humiliation because of their faith and spiritual practices by the elites and the ruling class of that period. They considered their Western philosophy and faith supreme, and they used to mock us. It was fashionable to become as much as Englishmen as possible and to look down upon our own culture. Though some of our social leaders like Bankim Chandra, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, and Raja Ram Mohan Rai were resisting this upcoming trend in our society at the time through their own way. But the perspective of Swami Vivekananda towards our society and the youth made his path unique and the most remarkable amongst others. Swamiji was a realist and rationalist social philosopher. He was proud of our heritage and civilization. But at the same time, he was also conscious of the problems and which crept in our tradition and in society. Therefore, he gave a message of fraternity among all Indians and made a very conscious call to first worship and serve our Bharat Mata, then any other of our gods. His message was aspiring, especially among youth, because of hope and realism it carried. He once said playing football is necessary for youth than reading spiritual books to make them strong and to serve Bharat Mata. He traveled through the length and breadth of the country for 2 years preaching his Advait Vedant philosophy as a Parivrajak sannyasi. The mantra which Swamiji gave to our society helped in forming proud youngsters and leaders devoted to the cause of Mahabharata. These works of Swamiji inspired leaders who further helped in evolving our society. Today we see a significant progress of Bharat from the deep slumber and injury of 1,000 years of continuous foreign invasion to a new and civilizational proud India. He inspired Subhash Chandra Bose to put India on priority. Gandhiji said after reading the works of Vivekananda, his love for his nation became 1,000-fold. Tilak compared his work and stature as of 8th century Adi Guru Shankaracharya in unifying and re-establishing our values and practices. Jamshedji Tata inspired from his advice and established Indian Institute of Science. Rajgopalachari even once said that he saved Hinduism and India. He also inspired Dr. Hedgewarji to establish Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. His message that 1,000 youths dedicated fully for the welfare of Bharat can change the future of India has been effectively implemented through the works of RSS, its Swayamsevak and Pracharak system. He continued to aspire youths and leaders even post-independence. There are so many leaders in India today who are said to have been inspired from him only. Even when I was a student, we all used to keep a poster of Swami Vivekananda in our room with a quote, "Arise, awake, and don't stop till you reach your goal." We all know this. This connect, even after a century of his message, is phenomenal. Therefore, in 1984, his birth anniversary has been declared by the Government of India as National Youth Day, considering his positive impact on youth. All organizations in India celebrate this day in their own style and in their capacity to give perpetuity to the message of Swamiji. Akhil Bharatiya Adhivakta Parishad has also decided to celebrate his birth anniversary as Young Advocates Day to inspire young professionals and to motivate them to serve the cause of Mahabharati in their profession. With this background, I conclude my introductory statement and request the main speaker to kindly enlighten us on today's topic and the relevance of Swami Vivekananda's message for our society and the youth in terms of our profession. Over to you, Amitji.
Thank you, Ayushji. Swami Vivekananda ji is an inspiration for all of us. He is a patriot saint of modern India. Swami Vivekananda ji is a key figure for introduction of Indian philosophy to the outside world, especially Vedanta and Yoga. His life and teachings are of enormous value to the West for an understanding of the mind of Asia. Though we all know our distinguished speaker, Mr. Jaideep Gupta sir, but as a set of ritual, may I call upon Mr. Gautam Singh for introduction of our eminent speaker, Mr. Jaideep Gupta sir. Mr. Gautam Singh ji.
Thank you, Amitji. I'm privileged to introduce our today's eminent speaker, who need no introduction, as he is one of the most prominent lawyers, none other than Mr. Jaideep Gupta, Senior Advocate. Sir is a practicing advocate and has been handling commercial and constitutional litigation for over more than 30 years, before the Honorable Supreme Court of India and also before other various high courts across the country. Jaideep ji was born in 1961 into a family of lawyers in Kolkata. After completing his schooling from St. Xavier's, Kolkata, in 1978, he joined Presidency College and passed economics with a first class in 1981. Thereafter, he joined law in 1982 in one of the top universities in the world, the University of Cambridge. And from there, he qualified law in 1984. And then he also qualified for the English bar from Lincoln's Inn in 1985. After completing his law from University of Cambridge, he came back to India in 1985 and started his practice before the Honorable High Court of Calcutta and subsequently before the Honorable Supreme Court of India. And in 1992, Sir shifted to Delhi due to his regular engagements before Honorable Supreme Court. Sir was designated as a senior advocate by the Honorable High Court of Calcutta in August 2002. Sir has frequently appeared before international and domestic arbitral tribunals. He has been a regular participant and speaker at the Commonwealth Law Conference since 2011 and has also been speaking in the Cambridge Symposium on Economic Crime since 2013. And there are other various international conferences to his list. There is a long list of cases where Sir has assisted the honorable courts and international and domestic arbitral tribunals. However, due to paucity of time, I would like to mention few of the landmark judgments argued by Sir before the Honorable Supreme Court of India. The list is long, however, few matters to mention are Kaveri water dispute, which was wherein Sir represented state of Kerala before Honorable Supreme Court of India. In Sabrimala case also, Sir represented state of Kerala. And in demonetization case, Sir represented RBI. And Sir has also represented RBI in recent cases of RTI, wherein what information can be given by financial institutions or what cannot be. And to the one of the most prominent cases is where Sir represented Mahant Shri Dharam Das in Ram Janmabhoomi case, wherein he was respondent number 12. Jaideep ji has also co-authored on the arbitration section of Helbury's Laws of India. He's an accredited advocacy trainer and with 16 years of experience. Jaideep ji has also been associated with Ramakrishna Mission and have assisted lawyers and all other individuals on all fronts in all manners whenever required. Jaideep ji loves music and has a keen interest in history and also loves to read biographic works and is very fond of traveling. I will now conclude with this brief introduction, even though there is so much more to talk about Sir's contribution to the legal fraternity in various ways. Now, I will humbly request our respected senior Mr. Jaideep Gupta sir to guide us and enlighten us with his kind words in today's lecture. Thank you, Amit ji.
Good evening, everybody. I have been asked to talk about Swami Vivekananda today, which is a great honor for me for various reasons. The greatest Hindu monk, according to me, of modern times was Swami Vivekananda. He was born in Calcutta, as you heard, on 12th of January 1863. His name given to him at birth was Narendranath Datta, or simply Naren, lovingly called Naren by everybody who knew him, all the way up to his pre-monastic days. He had a very strong connection with the legal profession to start with. His father was an eminent lawyer in Calcutta. His name was Vishwanath Datta. And in his childhood, we hear stories of Swamiji following his father on his travels across the country to meet clients and carry out his other professional work. But his brush with the law was not long lasting. And in fact, it was quite painful because I understand that before he took sannyas, his family had several legal issues and were in a lot of difficulty financially. On the English calendar, only 2 days separate his birthday from mine. I was born on 14th of January, 1961. On the Hindu calendar, however, where we talk about the Janma Tithi, even that difference vanishes. To share such a significant connection with such a great man has been a source of inspiration and solace to me in all my life. If anything goes wrong, even then it is a matter of great solace to me. Growing up in Calcutta in the 60s, his life story was familiar with us through accessible and inexpensive picture books written for children with beautiful illustrations. The illustrations were so good that we can remember the stories simply by remembering those illustrations. I'll give you one example. One story that I remember vividly shows that Swamiji from a very early age had very special qualities, both of intellect and human values, like kindness. He would give away his clothes and belongings to the poor who came to the door, and his parents could do nothing to stop him, even after locking him up in his own room. The picture that shows this entire story shows a small boy sitting in the upper floor room of a Calcutta house, typical Calcutta house, throwing down from the top floor window his clothes to two beggars who are standing on the street. The Ramakrishna Mission, which has several institutions in the city of Calcutta, and also the main campus of the Mutt, which is in Belur, which is a small city little north of Calcutta, was the strongest religious and spiritual presence in our lives. Various members of my family were connected with it in various ways, spiritual and otherwise. I say this because for several years, my father, the late Dipankar Prasad Gupta, who was the Solicitor General of India, represented the Ramakrishna Mission in a long litigation which it fought against the state of West Bengal to protect its various educational institutions and schools across the state of West Bengal, which had come under the evil eye of the left front government. It was ultimately resolved in the Honorable Supreme Court by a judgment which is reported as Siddheshwar Brahmachari versus State of West Bengal. By that time, my father was the Solicitor General in Delhi, and so therefore he could not carry on conducting this litigation, and it was conducted by other very eminent lawyers. In the course of this litigation, he told us that he had to read spiritual works, as a result of which a person who was otherwise of somebody who did not have that much interest and familiarity with the spiritual works of Vivekananda became conversant with his works. Several of my family are formally initiated in the order by taking Diksha from different Swamijis associated with the Ramakrishna Mutt. All my life I have been surrounded by the stories and teachings of Thakur Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. It is therefore a true honor to get an opportunity to speak to you all about Swami Vivekananda and his message to the youth. All his writings and all his lectures must be looked at from the point of view of the time in which he lived. That is between 1863 and 1902. Surveying the world at the end of the 19th century, as he perceived around him, Swamiji was faced with a contradiction. A country with as glorious a past as India and as wretched a present that was before him in the end of the 19th century. He started with the condition of India to try and identify what were the essential features of this civilization, of this country. At a lecture which he delivered on 16th of January 1897 at the Floral Hall in Colombo in Sri Lanka, while giving his first public lecture in the East after his tremendous success in the Parliament of Religions in Chicago, he described his motherland as a land where humanity has attained its highest towards gentleness, towards generosity, towards purity, towards calmness, above all, the land of introspection and of spirituality. After exploring the West and studying its civilizations, he was convinced that it was from this land, that is India, that had started the founders of religions from the most ancient times. That spiritual truth and philosophy had flowed across humanity again and again, and hence again must start the wave which is going to spiritualize the material civilizations of the world. In his beautiful phrase, he said, "Here is the life-giving water with which must be quenched the burning fire of materialism, which is burning the core of the hearts of millions in other lands." To him, religion was not the crying need of India. On 20th of September 1893, in the third address at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago, not the first one, which is very famous, he delivered a short speech where he said that the crying need of India is not religion. They have religion enough. But it is bread that the suffering millions of burning India cry out for with parched throats. Elaborating at the Colombo Conference, he said, "To the other nations of the world, religion is one amongst many occupations of life. But here in India, religion is the one and only occupation of life." To him, every race has a peculiar raison d'être. Every race has a peculiar mission to fulfill in the progress of the world. But our mission, that is the mission of India, is to conserve, preserve, accumulate, as it were, into a dynamo, all the spiritual energy of the race. And that concentrated energy is to pour forth in a deluge on the world, wherever circumstances are propitious. India's gift to the world, he said, is the light spiritual. In another beautiful passage, he said at a speech delivered in Madras, "This is the ancient land where wisdom made its home before it went into any other country. The same India whose influx of spirituality is represented, as it were, on the material plane by rolling rivers, oceans, where the eternal Himalayas, rising tier above tier with their snow caps, look as it were into the very mysteries of heaven. Here is the same India whose soil has been trodden by the feet of the greatest sages that ever lived. Here first sprang up inquiries into the nature of man and into the internal world. Internal world meant inside us. Here first arose the doctrines of immortality of the soul, the existence of a supervising God, an immanent God in nature and in man. And here the highest ideals of religion and philosophy have attained their culminating points."
हमें सहयोग देते रहते हैं, इसके लिए हम आपका हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करते हैं।
This idea obsessed Swamiji. At a reply to the address of welcome presented to the Swami by the citizens of Calcutta after he came back, he announced that India must conquer the world and nothing less than that is my ideal. He went on to say that one of the greatest cause of India's misery and downfall has been that she narrowed herself, went into a shell as an oyster does, and refused to give her jewels and her treasures to the other races of mankind, refused to give the life-giving water truths to thirsting nations outside. For a complete civilization, he said, the world is waiting for the treasures to come out of India, waiting for the marvelous spiritual inheritance of the race, which through decades of degradation and misery, the nation has still clutched to her breast. And for this task, he specifically announced that it is the youth that will do it. The young, the energetic, the strong, the well-built, the intellectual. For them it is the task. I am quoting his exact words. It was as if he was describing himself. For we mustn't forget that Swamiji himself was in his 30s when he said this. He was the epitome of the youth that he was exhorting. Along with this idea of India was as a source of universal purification, he spoke of building the nation too. For he lived at a time when the material and economic condition of the country and its masses was wretched indeed. Even for this purpose, he insisted that the base had to be religion and spirituality, because that is the foundational and fundamental fact of our civilization through the ages. He said that every improvement in India requires, first of all, an upheaval in religion. Before flooding India with socialistic and political ideas, not socialist, but socialistic and political ideas, first deluge the land with spiritual ideas. The first work that demands our attention is that the most wonderful truths confined in our Upanishads, in our scriptures, in our Puranas, must be brought out from the books, brought out from the monasteries, brought out from the forests, brought out from the select body of persons who study it, and scattered and broadcast all over the land, so that these truths may run like fire all over the country, from north to south, east to west, etc. And after preaching spiritual knowledge, along with it will come that secular knowledge and every other knowledge that you want. He therefore proposed that my plan is to start with institutions in India to train our young men as preachers of the truths of our scriptures in India and outside India. Strong, vigorous, believing young men, sincere to the backbone, are wanted. 100 such, and the world will become energized. In his own lifetime, he was able to make a significant start to this by setting up the Ramakrishna Mission for the spiritual upliftment of the people of India. Speaking at Madras after his return from the Parliament of Religion, he emphasized that the first plank of making a future India is the unification of religion. He said that the unity of religion was absolutely necessary as the first condition of the future. But he clarified that the unity of religion in this country meant identifying common ground that people of religion have. Understand them, know them, and try to bring them out in your life. Side by side, he emphasized the imparting of secular education. Here, the word secular means education in matters not religious and spiritual, the opposite of religious and spiritual. Further, he emphasized that in order to build a great future for India, the whole secret lies in organization, accumulation of power, and coordination of will. And for this too, he entrusted the work to the energy of youth. Again, repeating those words, the young, the strong and healthy, of sharp intellect. Along with this, he harnessed the philosophy of his spiritual guru, Thakur Sri Ramakrishna, of spiritual upliftment by service to mankind to improve and develop the material conditions of people through institutions like hospitals, schools, etc., to spread out in society and help people in need, especially in times of crisis. This was how the spirit of Karma Yoga was brought into play in order to build this nation. Here we have to understand what he meant by the universal religion. Whenever Swamiji spoke about the unity of religion or the universal religion, it was his firm conviction that Vedanta, by which he meant Advaita Vedanta, and Vedanta alone, that can become the universal religion of man. And no other is fitted for the role. He said so because, according to him, only Vedanta of all religions has as its core not personalities, but principles. He emphasized too that it is the only scripture, the teaching of which is in entire harmony with the results that have been attained by modern scientific investigations of external nature. When we talk of external nature, we are talking about the world outside us. The unifying spirit of Vedanta appealed to him as he taught the youth of India that all evil comes from relying on differences and all good comes out of faith in equality and underlying sameness and oneness of things. That is how, to his mind, Vedanta applies not only to our spirit but also to our material world. That is the concept of oneness. This contained, according to him, the answer to various problems that was faced by the nation at that time, and maybe to some extent today as well. That is to say, the problems of caste and other social issues that was faced by Indian society. To achieve this, he asked us to work to realize more and more the Vedantic ideal of solidarity of man and his inborn divine nature. These were the two aspects of Vedanta that he emphasized: the unification or solidarity of man and the inborn divine nature. To an audience in Kumbakonam in Tamil Nadu, he said, "Carry the light and the life of Vedanta to every door and rouse up the divinity that is hidden within every soul. In the success of this cause is centered the salvation of humanity here and hereafter." One of the advantages I find of reading his work is that he not only talks about the theory of religion, but also explains how he expects it to be applied. The application expresses and clarifies his concept of the theory. Swamiji often gave practical guidance to youth on how to go about the challenging agenda that he has set before them. He taught them to develop their personality. Perhaps we don't have time to go into this in great detail. So I chose one concept which he gave to the youth and whoever was before him. He wrote at length on the skill sets that are required for this purpose. And one of the most important skills that he urged the youth to develop was the power of concentration. All success in any line of work is the result of power of concentration, he said. It is easy, according to him, to concentrate our mind on those things that we love. For instance, if there is a beautiful music piece which is playing, or if somebody is speaking and giving a stirring speech, then your mind is drawn to it and holds it as long as it chooses. Concentration is no problem if you are enjoying it, if you love it. The problem of such concentration, he says, is that we cannot control this. We cannot control the mind at this time. The mind controls us. Something outside us, such as this beautiful music, draws our mind to it and holds it as long as it chooses. But it is possible, and that is more important, to develop concentration such that we can become masters of it. Then the mind is not blindly holding it. You are able to hold the concentration as long as you wish to. In training the mind, the first step is to begin with breathing. Simple breathing is all that is necessary. Contrivances are not required. But, and this is very important, he warns that the danger of concentration is that of when the mind is concentrated and is unable to detach itself. So you have managed to concentrate your mind, but you're now not able to take it out. This state can cause pain and suffering, he said. So, along with the power of concentration, we must develop the power of detachment. The power to detachment at moment's notice and to place your concentration on something else. I don't have to tell young lawyers or y'all how important these words are to any lawyer. He spoke of the power of concentration and detachment as an essence of education, not the collection of facts. To him, education was the acquisition of the tools to deal with facts, not the facts themselves. Swamiji's own power of concentration was legendary. One of my favorite stories of his life goes as follows. Once Swamiji was invited by Professor Paul Deussen at his residence in Kiel in Germany. At some point of time, the professor came into his library and found Swamiji had taken a book out of the bookshelves and was in the act of reading it. He spoke out to him, said hello, but Swamiji gave no response. When Swamiji came to know of this later, he apologized, saying that he was so absorbed in reading that he had not heard Professor Deussen. The professor was not convinced with this explanation. In order to convince him, Swamiji then, in the course of the conversation, quoted and interpreted passages from that book, which he had been reading standing up in the library in the morning. He did this without referring to the book at all and without having gone through that book at any time before. So he had picked up a book, he had read it, and he was able to quote it chapter and verse and discuss it with a professor after a few hours. Professor Deussen was so dumbfounded and asked the Swamiji how he could accomplish such a feat of memory. The answer, which Swamiji of course does not give Professor Deussen, of course lay in Swamiji's powers of concentration, which he had developed over the years. Swamiji died on 4th of July 1902 at the young age of 39. In this short lifespan, he achieved a substantial aspect of the agenda that he set forth for the youth of the country. He set up the Ramakrishna Mission, which carries out even to this day the work of spreading spiritual and secular knowledge the world over. He died while he was still a young man, having carried forward the agenda that he encouraged the youth of India to strive to carry out both within India and outside across the world. What I'm trying to emphasize here is that in a sense, his own life was a role model for the youth of this country, a shining example of what a young person can achieve during their years of prime. Swamiji never grew old. He died at 39. What he did was the work that he wanted the youth of India to do, which in a sense he himself represented. His passing did not bring to an halt the ideas that he extensively communicated to generations to come in his writings and lectures. As he had anticipated in the following words, his own death, "I have done nothing as yet," he said. "You have to do the task. If I die tomorrow, my work will not die. I sincerely believe that there will be thousands coming up from the ranks to take up the work and carry it further and further, and beyond all that my most hopeful imagination ever painted. I have faith in my country and especially in the youth of my country." It is for this reason that we celebrate his birthday as the National Youth Day. His work, his inspiration, his knowledge, which he has imparted to us, his understanding, his plans for the future of this nation are essential for all of us, not just the young, but everybody, but most particularly the young, because he said that it is only the young who will be able to carry it out, not the jaded, not the old. On that note, I would like to conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jaideep Gupta sir. Thank you to guide and motivate all of us by apprising with the life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda ji. Today, we are glad to inform our audience that this webinar is being viewed in some other countries as well. For more details, I would like to invite Shubhendu Anand ji. Over to you, Shubhendu ji.
Thank you, Amit ji. Akhil Bharatiya Adhivakta Parishad, in its quest for international relations and coordinating with members of the legal fraternity from India and abroad, has taken up upon itself to reach out to the members of the bar, not just in India, but also not just in Asian countries, but also other countries in the world. So in this regard, today we are being joined by delegates and advocates from various countries, including Malaysia, Thailand, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, France, Singapore, and Nepal. So viewers, lawyers, and delegates from all these countries are presently watching us, and they are all a part of Adhivakta Parishad's outreach program that caters to the international community situated outside India.
Now, we are moving towards the final phase of our function. For vote of thanks, I would like to call upon Ms. Alpana Sharma.
I would like to endeavor my thanks to our honorable distinguished guest, senior advocate Jaideep Gupta ji, for enlightening and envisioning us on this special occasion for celebrating Young Advocates Day. We are fortunate to revive our thoughts on Swami Vivekananda ji with various phrases and instances which will be the guiding power to implement his special words: arise, awake, and do not stop until you achieve the goal. By practicing the power of concentration, wherein the emphasis was placed on the power of detachment. Also, we were glad to know the contribution by Swami Vivekananda ji towards the unity of religion, spirituality, society, and especially towards the youth who are building blocks of the strong nation, the Bharat. Also made us understand the Vedanta philosophy, which is very practical and important for the development of mankind. My special thanks to the audience as well, who have joined us in our virtual session. For more intellectual and interactive sessions like this, kindly do like, share, subscribe our YouTube channel, Adhivakta Parishad Supreme Court Unit, and also do follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you.
Now, I request to everyone to kindly join and stand up for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा। विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंग। तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे। गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे। नमस्कार। वंदे मातरम। भारत माता की जय।
भारत माता की